I've talked a lot on this channel about the differences between Magic the Gathering and Flesh and Blood. I've talked about why, as you know, Magic players should come into this game and try it. I've talked about Ultimate Pit Fight and why Commander players should play it. And I've just, I've talked about the differences between the companies and how LSS is an absolute alpha chat. And I am going to talk now about the differences in these games, because it is a difference now, and their world building, their lore, and the focus on those things. And I'm going to discuss a little bit about how Magic is making, I think, in my opinion, a big oopsie in doing all these IP crossovers, because it is, in my opinion, going to hurt the game in the long term. So, hello my fellow Flesh and Blood and Magic the Gathering players. My name is SloopTube. Welcome to the channel. Flesh and Blood has its own world. Magic has its own world. Okay, so these two games have such an appeal to a lot of players because people really like games where it's its own thing. Like there's a world, there's lore, it's got a feel to it, right? So if you take games like WeCross or Wicross, however you pronounce it, that's basically a crossover game. There's a reason it's not as popular as these other games, because the appeal to it is only if you really like crossover stuff, and I think that's a pretty niche appeal, right? And that's fine. Things exist for niche interests. That's great. That's fantastic. But the game's never going to be as big, even if it is a fun game to play, because just the appeal isn't really there for me. I don't really care. I don't want a crossover game. I want a game that's its own world, its own thing. Magic was that game for almost 30 years, for at least 25 years. That was Magic. Magic was its own world. It was the multiverse. It was all these characters that existed. There was a theme to it. Even when we went to Kaladesh. Kaladesh in Magic is basically what Mechanologist is in Flesh and Blood, where it's one of those things that stands out from everything else quite a bit. You got the technology aspect, you have the mech aspect, and then you've got the ether, construction and vehicle type aspect of Magic. They both feel very far off from the rest of the game. However, it still has that Flesh and Blood and that Magic feel to it. So even though it is a huge kind of step out from the norm, it still has the feel of the game, and therefore you can accept it and you are fine with it. I'm sorry though, the Walking Dead characters, Lord of the Rings characters, Warhammer characters, Stranger Things characters, and whatever the hell else is coming down the line, because there's quite a lot else, is not part of the Magic world. And it's ruining the integrity of that game, and it's ruining the lore building, it's ruining the some people will say, just don't play the cards. You don't like it, just don't play them. Okay, but I don't want to face them either. And I know some people are like, well, that's a bad opinion. Well, people should be able to play with the cards they want to. That's fair. I'm not going to stop somebody. If I do sit down for more Commander in the future, if I return to it, which I probably will at some point, and somebody's playing a Walking Dead, I'm not gonna be like, hey, you can't play that deck. But I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna like it. I'm gonna look at it and be like, this is fucking stupid. This is why I left Magic. Like, this is not what I want. I don't want to play the Walking Dead TCG. I want to be immersed in Magic's world. I want to immerse myself, right? I have a Mild Anima deck. I love that deck because it makes me feel like I'm in Naya. Like I'm around all these big, powerful beasts and giant creatures, and like my basics are all Naya lands, right? I got the Naya foil basic lands because it's that feeling, right? You play an Infect deck, and you might play the Infect lands because there's that feeling of Mirrodin and the Phyrexians, and this just really cool, just the feel. There's an emotion that it evokes. There's a feeling when you play, when you immerse yourself in a world, through the art, through the flavor text, through the mechanics. The art is a big one, right? That's why we are visual creatures. Okay, humans are visual creatures. So the art is a huge one, and it makes you feel things. I mean, I've talked about art plenty of times on this channel. Art is important to me. I think this is one of the biggest drivers for card games, is the art. At least for me, and I know there's a lot of other players where it is too. How many times have you chosen a hero or a deck not because of how it played, but because of the art? Think about that for a second, because you've done it. Every player from any game has done it. People do it with Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, Flesh and Blood, Force of Will, everything. You like the art of a certain card or a certain set of cards, like an archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh? Building it. Don't care how it plays. I just like the way it looks. And you'll enjoy how it plays half the time because you like the way it looks, so you just like the cards. I don't want to fight 11. I don't want to play Commander and have 11 facing me. I don't want to have Pikachu in my Magic game. I don't want to have Straw Hat Luffy in my Magic game. You know, I just don't. I want to be immersed in Magic's world. The world I liked what Magic had. I don't want that broken constantly. I mean, the thing I was most okay with is the Godzilla treatment. Now, if they made too many of it, it's like, okay, this is kind of a little ridiculous, but I could have lived with that. A card that is its own card, but has a specialty version where it's just an alternate art. And the reason I'm okay with that is because Commander players especially, pretty much just Commander players as far as I'm concerned, or as I know, because it's the only place that's acceptable, it's very popular to alter your cards, either to get proxy alters or to paint or have somebody paint over your commander, certain cards in the deck, get these full art paintings, or alter them to be a character from something else. Like I have some promos for my L that are what is it, Selvala, Heart of the Wilds. I've got a Princess Mononoke proxy version. Like I made the proxy through Make Playing Cards, and I love it. I have a Gaia's Cradle that is also from Princess Mononoke, and it looks awesome. And that's fine. Because it's a Magic card, just with an alternate art. And it's good art, and people can choose the art they like. I'm fine with that, but it's the fact that these aren't alter arts. They're just the characters. The Walking Dead characters are just part of Magic's world now. Characters from Stranger Things are just part of the multiverse now. Nobody wants that. You know, people who are invested long-term in the game, they don't want that. Most of them, at least. There are some, I'm not going to say everybody, but most people, I would say an overwhelming majority of the long-term Magic players who have been playing for at least a decade, they don't, and who have spent the most, who spend all the money, like they're more likely to be the whales, guarantee they don't want that. They don't want it. Okay? Now, we look at Flesh and Blood. We look at this game, and holy shit, their lore is just as deep as Magic. It's so new, and it's still unfolding, and it's so mysterious and interesting. You know, you got all these characters. I learned a bit about Dorinthia. I have a Dorinthia Blintz deck. I don't even have her up here. I don't know why I'm pointing over here. And I really like her and her storyline. I learned about her storyline and what happens with her and how she goes up against brutes and loses like people close to her and makes this huge mistake trying to do the right thing. And it's really cool to learn about all that stuff. Like, it's really cool to really delve into characters you like, to learn more about them, starting to read the flavor text and the art, like showing you different characters and things that's going on, the storyline with the whole light versus shadow, and the game has a feel to it. Even the Mechanologist cards, there's a feel to the art, there's a feel to the game, there's a feel to the themes that it portrays, and it's when you play it, you immerse yourself in this world. And the heroes are a big part of that, right? Because you are that hero, so you're like, oh man, I'm playing as Ira, like I'm a ninja. I'm gonna kick flip everywhere. Flesh and Blood is getting right what Magic is getting wrong. Think about it. I can't see Flesh and Blood doing crossovers if it's like a legitimate thing, right? I can see Flesh and Blood doing promos that are crossovers, and that's fine. But they would do like for instance, even the pop art head jabs. If we're going with those, I love those. They're promos and they come in the Ira Welcome deck. The pop art head jabs are fantastic. They look great. It's a cool little different type of art, but you can still get the real art, right? And it's still like the card. It's just, that's what you should do. Promo arts, alter arts, but don't make new cards that are just other characters. That ruins the feel of a game. And there's people making the argument for Magic all the time. Well, just what does it matter? Like, it's just a card. Like, let people play with what they want. Like, the feel of the game, really, like, that's what you're worried about. It should be how the gameplay is. And it's like, well, the gameplay is also about the feel of the game. Like, I don't get that opinion. Can I rant for a second? I really don't get that opinion because I've seen it and I've heard it and I've had people say it to me online before when I was talking about like Walking Dead and all that. You saw it in the whole Magic community. A lot of people saying, well, if you don't like it, just don't play it. You know, who cares? Don't talk to me about game immersion. That doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It might not matter for you. You might be a newer player who just wants to play a game. But like, most of us want the world. Most of us get invested in this game because we love the world of Magic. We love the lore. We love the art, right? We love the feel that we get when we play certain decks. There's an emotion behind it. And that's the appeal to this. You immerse yourself in this world. That is important. To say that that's not important is naive at best. Because it's genuinely an important factor in a game. And Flesh and Blood is getting it right. And when you play it, you immerse yourself in that world. You immerse yourself in the fantasy world. You know, even just looking at heroes like Bravo, Bolton, Prism, I've got Ira here, you know, when you look at them, they're just so cool. I gravitated to Bravo not because I like the gameplay style. I loved the art on the cards. He looks awesome. He's this really cool, badass hero. Big, brawny, reminds you of Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. And I love him. I love him. You know, and his gameplay style isn't even my favorite way to play, but I love playing the deck because I just love the cards. I love the lore. I love the feel that I get when I'm playing the deck. And that's powerful, man. That's really powerful. And I feel like this is where Flesh and Blood is going to have such an advantage over Magic. The world, the lore building. I think if Flesh and Blood, right now they're focusing on competitive play. They're focusing on getting product out, product delay. So, maybe we might be looking at 2022. I'm kind of hoping that next year, if things settle, the whole pandemic thing is maybe over, hopefully. But if we can have things settled and they've got some free time at LSS, I really hope they can focus a bit more on the lore and getting the lore out to us. Getting lore books out, right, and getting having it like available. Maybe they do like a bundle idea. You know, Magic used to do their fat packs with a book from the series. I would love for Flesh and Blood to do that. Even just little like small like 50-page like little novellas or something, you know, to go with them, or a full on paperback novel. I would pay for it. I would buy them. I would 100% buy them if you get a good writer. I think that would be amazing because people like to delve into things they fall in love with. And Flesh and Blood is a game that is good enough, that is more than good enough. Just like Magic, it's easy for people to fall into it because it's so good. There's so much there that there's enough to sink your teeth into. And Magic's leaving that behind. They're going to try to write a story, but when you sit down for games and you see, you know, you got Stranger Things over here, you got The Simpsons here, you got Family Guy, you know, BoJack Horseman. I don't know why I'm naming all these adult shows, although BoJack Horseman is like the best show ever. I might buy a BoJack Horseman Secret Lair if that ever came out. I'm just kidding. I actually wouldn't. I don't like the crossovers. Yeah, that was a discussion video. I just really wanted to go over world building, how important it is. You know, I know I ranted there a little bit. I hope you enjoyed that because I think it's important, and I just don't understand the sentiment that it's not. You know, I guess to some people it doesn't matter, but to a lot it does. And that is a huge advantage Flesh and Blood has over Magic right now. And I think in the long term, not in the short term, but in the long term, in 5-10 years from now, if Flesh and Blood, unless they have a big upsie and they crash into the dust, and I really don't think they will, I think in the long term, this gives Flesh and Blood such an advantage over Magic, it's not even funny. You will have a whole different player base for Flesh and Blood and Magic. Magic will be full of people who play for a year or two and then leave. Whereas Flesh and Blood will have the core base of players who will stick around for decades if the game remains good. So we'll see which one's more powerful. Anyways, my name was Sloopdoop. Still is. I hope you have a good day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.